You are watching and listening to Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and your favourite podcasts.
Right, Chris.
Alrighty, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello, wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, and if you're watching live, please feel free to join in, get some questions and comments in the chat. Always obviously keep them respectful, and if you're watching on catch-up, add your thoughts below, always pleased to read them. It's the preview show. Dare I say it's a six-pointer? I think it is for both teams. But dare I say that a special guest is in, and I'm really, really pleased to have him on. If you ask any Southampton fan, they don't know him as Matt Tissier. They just know him as Le God. This is the preview show. Good evening. Matt, good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Good evening to you too.
Good. Are you as nervous as I am?
I don't really get nervous before games much anymore, to be honest. And I think as we went into this season, my expectations were fairly low, given the squad that we had. And I mean, I'm guessing, like you, survival is the number one aim this season. And obviously, we haven't started the season particularly well. You guys have started a little bit better than us. Obviously, we're winning your first game last time out against Bournemouth. We're still to do that yet.
Yes, but not just you. There's a few teams that are struggling this season, aren't they? And I think, like us, you probably think, well, we just need three teams to be worse than us this season.
Yeah.
Which may or may not be possible. But look, I want to start off by asking you, I mean, we were expecting to get a points deduction. And we may still get a points deduction. Who knows? I mean, there's another review coming up at the end of the year. But this early one, I mean, we're sat with 6 points. Probably that was what we were expecting to get as a reduction. I mean, how do you, as a sort of fan of an opposing team, feel about us getting away with it, if you like?
I think it's really difficult to have an opinion on all of these issues, because we're really kind of kept in the dark, really, about what the exact charges are, what evidence there's been brought forward. And you do kind of really leave it up to the legal experts to fight it out and come to their decisions. So, without knowing the full facts, it's difficult to be critical. But personally, I feel like all of those rules that have been put in place, although they're put there, they say to try to make a fair competition. I actually think those rules are in place. The ones that are in place actually favour the teams that are already rich, and I think it's a way of not being able to challenge their the big teams, really, and I think the rules themselves are a little bit unfair, if I'm honest.
No, totally. I mean, I think the funny thing is that we were never in the process of going out of business, because we've got rich owners, but we're just not allowed to spend the money. But I suppose it stops us getting into debt, and as a club, we have gone out of business once and very nearly twice. But I mean, if it comes to the end of the season and we stay up and you don't, will you feel a little bit bitter?
No, not really. I think you stay up on your ability on the football pitch, not whether you've had points deducted or not. I don't think I'd really be that happy to have stayed up. If we stayed up by a point and you were deducted 2 points, I'm not sure I'd be, overly pleased about that situation. I think the football should be played out on the pitch. And personally, I know you said that the club have nearly gone out of business a couple of times, but as you said, you now have a wealthy owner, and so I feel like as long as the club, doesn't overstretch itself to the point where the owners can't fund the football club, then I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to invest as much money as they want if they've got it. The problem comes when they're spending the money that they don't have, and that's where the rules should come into place.
Yes, no, exactly. And you totally agreed with me there. I mean, everything should be decided by what's played out on grass, not what's played out around the board table. Yeah, but
absolutely.
I honestly think my opinion is I just think the FA, the Premier League, they don't seem to care about the fans. I mean, all this when we had COVID and we wanted the fans back, and it wasn't the same without the fans. As soon as we got the fans back, it was almost like they were pulling on us again because they just literally want. I don't know that the big teams get the viewing figures in, but it's almost like they're marketing it for countries around the world, except England, where the fan base is.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, and I think it's been quite a long time now where I think as soon as the media and the TV rights started funding all the football clubs more than the revenue that the fans were bringing in, the relationship between the clubs and the fans and the Premier League and the fans, I think that's when it starts to deteriorate because they no longer feel like they need the fans anymore because they have all this money coming in from the TV companies. But I think it's a very short-sighted view. I think if you start putting people off going to football matches, and all of a sudden you're seeing Premier League football matches with grounds only half full, all of a sudden that's not so attractive to the sponsors and people around the world. So I think they do have to be a little bit careful about how they treat the football fans because they are still the ones that create the atmosphere, which is what people love about our football. They love the atmosphere that's created at grounds. And as you said, during COVID, watching football was pretty soulless, with no fans in the ground. It was awful, to the point where the TV companies actually were piping in, crowd noise to try and jazz it up a little bit. So that tells you something, doesn't it?
I could only watch the games with the crowd noise. I couldn't watch it without. It was just not right, But I mean, the silly thing is, though, and I don't live in Leicester. I actually live in Poole, just outside Bournemouth, on the south coast, obviously. But I was in Australia for 4 weeks. Just got back last week. And the silly thing is, if I lived in Leicester, I would go to the games because, like you say, you want the atmosphere, you want that. I used to have a season ticket, but it's a 7-hour round trip and finance, and I'm not working now. But when I was in Australia, I could have watched the 3:00 kickoff games on a Saturday free of charge. Totally ridiculous. It really is,
No,
Joe,
absolutely.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if Joe has ever watched me play football, but she says, just imagining Chris and Matt in the same team, that would have been something. You don't know me, Joe, do you? I haven't got 2 left feet. I just haven't got 2 feet of any description at all. And hi to Bath Time. Shout out, Chris. Matt was an absolute legend and one of my fave players as a child, indeed. And we've got some time left at the end. We'll chat with Matt about his career. But look, we are both in a situation, I think, we certainly are with our manager. We are judging him after 7 games, but he's only had those 7 games. He's come into a team where we lost our star player. He had nobody because, of course, when Enzo left as he did, and I don't blame Enzo for leaving. You have to go for these jobs when they come along. But, he was starting literally with no backup staff, nobody to sort of help with the, coming into the club. I wanted him at the start of the season because I think, like I say, if he can get us to 17th, which he did with Forest, what are your thoughts on Steve Cooper as a manager?
Well, obviously, did a decent job at Swansea, and clearly took Nottingham Forest from the lower reaches of the Championship and got them promoted, kept them up, and so I think he's actually had a pretty successful spell as a manager. Obviously, getting the sack at Forest. I think it was like 1 win in 13 games or something when he got the sack. And runs like that, often end up with managers, paying the price, no matter how bad their players are playing. It's not always the manager's fault. So I actually think, Steve Cooper is a decent manager, and like you say, it's very difficult to judge somebody on the back of 7 Premier League matches. That's way too early to do that. But I actually think he's got good experience. I think the job he did at Forest was excellent. So I think people should just maybe be a little bit more patient with their judgment.
Yes, yeah. And talking about judgments, your judgment of your manager, Sir Martin. I've heard he doesn't like. He's very. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but he knows what he wants to do and he sticks to it.
Belligerent.
That was one of them. Yes,
might be the right word. Russell has got a system that he likes to play, a style of play that he wants to play, which, when you look back at our season in the Championship last season, I know you boys spanked us twice, but in between those 2 results, we went 25 games unbeaten, during that season. So, that was a pretty spectacular run for it. That was a club record for us down here. So that was pretty special. And, we did have a couple of bad spells, as I mentioned, that, the defeat that you gave us at home, that was part of a 4-match losing spell. And then obviously the 5-0 drubbing up at your place. So not particularly great. And we did challenge for automatic at one point. I think we got to 2nd place at one stage, but only very briefly. And then obviously going up through the playoffs was an amazing experience. And but I have to tell you, there's probably a massive split amongst Southampton fans going into that game against Leeds. And it was probably 50-50 as to whether or not Southampton fans actually wanted us to go up or not, because they knew the kind of season that we would be in for if we did get promoted. And it's turning out that way. And it's tough, coming up for the Championship is hard enough. Coming up through the playoffs, when you've had that extra few weeks on top of the season finishing, everybody else has a bit of a head start on you in the transfer market because you don't know what league you're going to be in. So I think it's pretty difficult. I think he is very much set in the way that he wants to play. I feel like there's a balance to be had because we've given away a lot of goals playing in that manner. And I felt like we would in this division. We got away with it a little bit in the Championship last season, playing that way, because the teams weren't obviously of the same high quality and we were making mistakes. We just weren't getting punished for them. When you make those mistakes in the Premier League, you get punished much more often for them. And we did in those first few weeks of the season. But he's continuing to play that way. Now, for me, if I was manager of a football club and my team were making the same mistakes and they were getting punished over and over again, I'd probably look to change something, if I'm honest. Because first and foremost, my primary objective is to win football matches, first and foremost, and to stay in the Premier League. And if we continue the way that we're going, we are just going to keep giving away goals and keep losing football matches. So I feel like there needs to be a little bit of a balance there in the way that the manager approaches the game. Yes, you can have your ideal way that you want to play, but sometimes if you haven't got the correct players in those positions that enable you to play that way, you've got to adapt. Now, I think one of the worst things that might have happened in this regard was actually Vincent Kompany getting relegated with Burnley playing this similar style and then getting the Bayern Munich manager's job on the back of it, even though he got relegated with Burnley. Now, I don't know if Russell's looking at that and going, oh, okay, as long as my style of play is good, it don't matter if I get relegated, I might get a big job. Now, I know. That's all well and good for Russell Martin, but that's not all well and good for Southampton Football Club fans like myself.
No. Next season we'll see him at Real Madrid. Well, it's strange, like you say, stranger
things have happened. I'll tell you what, if you'd have told me at the end of last season that Kompany would be the Bayern Munich manager's job, I'd have laughed in your face.
Don't agree. I don't get that one at all. But look, he had history there, I guess. But we were the same with Enzo. We ended up scraping it by a point in the end. to be champions, and I'm glad we did it. That was the one thing I wanted, was to get the championship. So we've won one more than Manchester City now. So, and unless the FA do us a favour and dock them about 50 points, they ain't going to end up in the second tier again. But we as mad as we seem to be about, and we are about the way that Enzo left. And like I said, I do understand you have to go for these jobs when they come along, because if you turn them down, you don't know when they're going to come along again. We actually, I think, wouldn't be any better off under Enzo now because of the style of football. He was very much playing it out from the back, and we were giving goals away, and it was very, we were used to playing. At some point, I think we didn't have, apart from the goalkeeper, we didn't have any of our players in our own half. You're not going to get away with that in the Premier League.
No, you don't. You get punished much more readily. And I think there does need to be a little bit of adaptation that goes on. You can't just keep playing the way that you played in the Championship and hoping that you're going to get away with it.
I mean, he's got the players to do it, I guess, at Chelsea, but, And last season, I mean, the games are there. You'll be pleased to know that I wasn't able to get a ticket this season. So the last games I've been to, I haven't seen us lose at St Mary's since dare I mention it, the 9-0.
I was there that night as well. Yes.
Yeah, there was that. I got absolutely pissed wet through, and I didn't give a damn. Just shows her what I know about football, because at half time we were I think it was 5 at half time, and I turned to my son and went, well, just enjoy it now, we're not going to get any more. I said, we're 5-0 up, we're going to take it easy. So I know nothing. I know nothing. But no, last season you would not have thought that you would have got 87 points, which you did, and not get promoted.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty amazing. 87 points and not just not promoted, but not even finishing in the top 3. That was some great runs put together by yourselves, by Ipswich, by Leeds. Some really consistent performers in that league, and even the playoff championship game was very, very tight between us and Leeds. Separated by just the one goal, I was actually quite impressed that day with Russell Martin, because he actually did change his tactics that day, for that particular game. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe he is, adaptable and doesn't have to play the same high risk football, because he didn't really do it that day in the playoff final. But unfortunately, we carried on doing it for the first few games, and
it was a blip. It was
pretty costly. Yeah.
I don't know what you mean about the playoffs. I mean, we've had numerous days out at Wembley for playoff finals, and it does put you back. And it's great to have a day out at Wembley, of course it is, but it was a lot easier going up without having to worry about that. Can I just say to yourself and to Southampton, from every single football fan outside of Yorkshire, thank you for beating Leeds.
Oh, sorry, Chris, you just cut out there on me. I couldn't quite make that out.
And I said, thank you. But let me just move my microphone. That might help a little bit. Is that any better? Can you hear me a bit louder now?
Oh, you're back. Sorry, I lost you there for a sec.
No, don't worry. I would say thank you from every fan of a football club outside of Yorkshire for beating Leeds.
It was all the sweeter for me as well, because I've got 2 brothers who are Leeds fans.
No! Oh, well. Even better.
Absolutely.
Coming up to this game at the weekend, I mean, neither of us are, like you say, in brilliant form at the moment. Your home form is you're in 19th. Our away form, we're in 16th there, but with only 1 point. That's how bad it is.
That's 1 point more than us.
Yeah, this could be a sort of what we call the sort of most boring game, the 0-0 at the end of match of the day.
Yeah, I'm not sure this game will end 0-0. We're not that fond of clean sheets at our football club recently, so I actually think there will be some goals in this game. I was really shocked actually when you said that the bookies have made us favourites for this. Given that our only point has come at home against Ipswich, and you guys have only lost 1 out of your last 4 Premier League games, and that was a only due to 2 late goals at Arsenal. So you're in far better form than we are. So yeah, I was a bit surprised at those odds.
And I mean, looking at your starting here, your sort of opening games, you've not really. Well, how can I word it? You've not really sort of been tanked, if you like. It's been well, yeah. I don't know on performance, but certainly on score lines. When you look at who you've been up against, I mean, I look at ours and thinking, well, look, apart from Tottenham, who were always Tottenham, so you might get something from them, Villa and Arsenal. The teams who were playing, Fulham, Everton, Bournemouth, I feel we should have got more than we did. Do you feel the same for Southampton?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think certainly the Nottingham Forest game was one early on that's the kind of fixture that given our position. That would be the type of fixture you'd be looking at taking 3 points from. If we're going to stay up this season, we've got to be winning our home games against, the teams outside of the big 6 or 7 ones.
Yes. So
that was a disappointing one. Obviously, going away to Brentford and losing was tough. And the last minute equaliser against Ipswich was heartbreaking, really, because that was kind of almost 3 points in the bag, and it was pretty much the last kick of the game. So that was a big disappointment. I mean, going away to Bournemouth and being 3-0 down, before half time, that wasn't really particularly acceptable. So there have been some disappointing ones, which we've kind of, we won the second half 1-0 and made it look a bit more respectable than it actually was. But Bournemouth really took the foot off the gas a little bit, if I'm honest, and probably could have gone on to score more goals. So they've been a little bit more adventurous in that second half. And we gave Arsenal we defended well against Arsenal for an hour. We nicked a goal, made them angry, and then they just went up and scored 2 or 3.
That's the case. It is the case, and we did that
quickly.
2-0 down. We got it back to 2-2. It's like poking the bear.
Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna do that against them, wait till about the 95th minute before you score. Then at least you might get a point.
Well, I don't know. With Leicester, we still managed to concede in the 96th, 97th minute. It's our thing. I mean, you said earlier, and I meant to mention it then, but you said about a lot of your fans were sort of in two minds about whether they actually wanted to come up or not. I mean, it was great to be in a league where we were winning again. And coming back, I mean, I actually I thought the standard of refereeing last season was all right, because you kind of said, well, look, they're on their own, they have to make the decision. And yes, it very much balances out, I think. And somebody said to me one time, yeah, well, VAR balances out, but it bloody shouldn't, because it's supposed to be spot on.
Yeah.
And we're back already. We got done by Arsenal because of VAR. I can't stand VAR. It was just great when you scored that you could celebrate the bloody goal.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big points why a lot of Saints fans last season, a lot of them enjoyed the football much more because of that. That euphoria that when you did score, you knew it was in, and it wasn't going to get chalked off. And that kind of made I. When VAR was being mooted, I was like, this is a really good idea. This will, make the game a lot fairer, because I felt like the small teams always had a bit of a rough deal from the referees. And then gradually as the decisions got more and more ridiculous, I kind of lost a little bit of faith in VAR, and I actually enjoyed last season in the Championship without the VAR.
Totally 100%. I say that was one reason. I know if we hadn't gone up, I wouldn't necessarily been overly disappointed. But look, it's what it is, and I mean, I still think that ex-players. I mean, you got a lot of players that are pundits and what have you. When you were on telly for a while, but you got a lot of players from sort of the lower league clubs that know football, that know if they're looking at something, whether that hand is in a natural position for where they're jumping. Not somebody that's never played the game, but has just read a book of rules.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I actually advocated for even before VAR came in. We had a conversation on Soccer Saturday about it. And I said I felt like that there should be an ex-player in that room with the refs to give a little bit of context in certain situations, not to be the the arbiters of everything, but
No.
just to be there to bounce things off of in situations where it would be nice to have somebody who's been in that position to just give their experience of what they think they've just seen and what they feel like has happened from a player's perspective. Because as you said, the referees haven't really kind of been in that level of play and wouldn't have the same experience as the players have got.
Yeah. I'm just going to take you back because you did say, and I can't not mention it again, that we did do the double over you last season. But I have to say, in my defence, in the season before when we got relegated, you actually did the double over us.
That's true.
I can
know.
blame you for relegating us, actually.
Yeah, I think at the moment, over the past few years, though, I think you've had the upper hand when you throw in the 9-0 as well. Although that season, we did after the 9-0. I think we came up to your place and won 2-1 at your place. So that was a pretty big turnaround in the space of a few months.
And I think, in fairness, I don't think it helped the fact that before the players came out, and players could probably hear it or see it, I don't know, but on the big screens, we played that 9-0 game or the goals, and it's like, again, you're poking the bear.
Poking the bear, yeah. Whoever decided that in the social media department wasn't really a footballer and didn't think that through properly.
They didn't, did they? I actually was at Southampton after the second game because I was going on a cruise, and I didn't even think about it, and I had my Leicester top on, a hoodie thing, and the guy that was checking me and said, "You're risking it round here, aren't you?" I said, I didn't want to mention the 9-0, but he did remind me of the 2-1, like you say,
Yeah.
But look, that's how it looks at the moment. The table. You Wolves. I mean, I must admit, I did have Wolves going down. I had them, I think, in 18th place. I did have yourself going down because of the reasons we've said. I had us staying up, but only by the skin of our teeth. I didn't have us winning the Premier League again. I had us in 17th. But I mean, it is all about 17th, isn't it?
Well, I think for any of the teams that come up from the Championship the first season, I think gone are the days probably of when you had many years ago when I was back playing, when Nottingham Forest got promoted and then finished, quite high up in the table that next season. And I think those days are actually gone. I think Ipswich actually did it back then as well. But definitely, the way things have changed, it is just all about survival that first season. And I think it is going to be tough for all three teams that came up. As you say, Wolves haven't won a game yet. Crystal Palace haven't won a game yet, surprisingly.
Nor Ipswich, in fairness.
And I think it will be. I mean, you're probably looking at the table now after 7 games and thinking, okay, it could be 3 from 6 teams, but then Bournemouth have only got 8 points. Although I think they've probably, looking at the way they played against us, I don't think they'll be in a relegation battle. To be honest, I think there's some good quality there, and so that's probably how it's going to pan out for the rest of the season. I think probably 3 out of those 6 that we're looking at the bottom of the table now.
What about Man United? I mean,
I don't think they'll get relegated.
No. I so would love to see it. Everybody outside of everybody outside of Greater Manchester. Most of their fans are outside Greater Manchester. But Manchester fans said to me the other day, he said, "You can't complain after 7 games. You're only 2 points behind Man United." I said, "Well, yeah, Man United were like 4th or 5th where they should be. I'd be very happy." But I've got to say, we've talked about the managers. Eric Ten Hag, he's got to be one of the favourites for the first to go, hasn't he?
I mean, he must be on. I think he's on his last legs at the minute, I would imagine. I think it's going to take a pretty special run of results for him to keep his job for the rest of the season. I would imagine. I don't know what the odds are. I haven't looked at I don't like looking at the odds for the next manager to be sacked. I think it's not a great market to be looking at.
No.
But I'm sure that he's probably amongst the favourites. And when you look at what Man United have done, over the last few decades, and see them after 7 games having 8 points, I think it's their worst ever start to a Premier League. I would imagine. I don't remember anything worse than that.
No, it is. It is definitely the worst. Yes.
Yeah, so obviously he's going to be under a severe amount of pressure, and probably the only fact that he's still there is probably because of what's going on above. With all the ownership issues and different factions at the club trying to work out a way forward. So yeah, he's probably a little bit fortunate in that regard, and of course he managed to beat Man City in the FA Cup final, which bought him a bit of time as well.
It did. It did. Right, this weekend's game. Who should Leicester be most worried about from the Southampton team?
I mean, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that there's not that many players that have covered themselves in glory at the start of this season, but there is one young lad who's broken into the team, although he made his debut last season, but he's kind of made a play spot in the team for himself now, and that's young Tyler Dibbling, who's burst onto the scene really, and has looked a real threat. He's quite he's a little bit different in terms of he's prepared to, he's almost like an old school Jack Grealish before he went to Aston Villa, where he's prepared to get on the ball and he's not frightened to dribble past players. It's something that's almost gone out of fashion in football these days, and so he looks a real bright spark. And I think if I was the Leicester manager, I think I'd probably be looking at him as the one to probably stop, because a lot of the good stuff that we've had in the last few games has come when he's on the ball and he creates things. And he's got his first Premier League goal against Ipswich, which would give him a huge amount of confidence. He didn't look out of place at Arsenal last week. He was still comfortable getting on the ball and driving at players. So he's the one I would say that's probably. And I also like Carl Walker-Peters. I think he's a very good footballer. He's actually been left out of the team a little bit because we've got also a very good right back in Sugawara, the Japanese lad who's a right back who's a very good footballer as well. So I would say they're probably our better performers at the moment.
I've got to ask about Jamie Vardy. I mean, 37, coming on 38. He needs to keep playing to pay his wife's legal bills, I've got to say. But did I say that out loud? But I mean, it's thank God we've got him. Because Patson Daka, our other main striker, is only just going back from injury, and he couldn't score last season for love nor money. Tom Cannon, who was never given a chance for some reason, has gone out on loan to Stoke. And we've brought in the amazing striking duo of Jordan Ayew and Edouard, who between them didn't get into double figures the last couple of seasons with goals.
Oh. Sorry, Chris, I lost you there.
Oh, I did freeze, actually, yeah. So Jamie Vardy's still doing it, isn't he? I mean, keep up the Red Bulls. Have I frozen again? Am I back?
Oh, yeah, go on.
I'm back, yeah.
I lost you there.
No, okay. I'm in problems with my internet. But I'm just saying, Jamie Vardy, I mean, carry on drinking them Red Bulls, son.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite remarkable what he's done going into his late 30s. I just think he's been an absolute godsend for Leicester. The amount of goals that he scored. Obviously the title winning season was amazing, but he's just carried on scoring goals on a regular basis and still, looking dangerous in the Premier League at 37 whenever he's come on or played. And he's certainly caused us enough problems down these last few years. I think he's probably got Southampton as one of his favourite teams to play against, I'd imagine, because every time we seem to play against you, he turns up and he scores.
Well, he does, or at least one. I think last time, I think it was last season, I think we scored in the first minute against you. It was like, here we go again. Again. But yeah, I mean, thank God we've got him. I mean, we've got Mavididi, who is playing very well. Fatawu, who was an unbelievable player last season, but is struggling to get in the first team this season. Were you surprised? I mean, I don't know whether you look much at sort of the transfer table, but were you surprised that Steve Cooper going for the older, experienced players?
It doesn't really surprise me when teams come up from the Championship. I think you do need some old heads in the team. It's pretty important, and I think that's probably something that we're struggling with down at Southampton. We probably don't have enough experience in that team, old heads in the team, because we've got quite a few youngsters, and so it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I don't kind of go as in depth into the transfer market as I used to when it was more of my job to actually be on top of all that kind of information. So I've kind of let my knowledge of the transfer market slip a little bit these last few years. Now that I don't have to rely on it every Saturday.
Don't blame you at all. Anthony, who is an Arsenal fan here, is just asking, and while we're talking about players, thoughts on Ramsdale. Was an Arsenal player.
I lost you again there, mate, but I can see the question on the screen.
Yes.
And Ramsdale, I think, is it a good career move? I think it's good for him to be playing, because I don't think it does any footballer any good to spend every game on the bench. That's not what you want to be a professional footballer for. So I think he had to get away. I think the surprising bit for me was that there wasn't, teams that were going to be fighting higher up the division, not willing to take him, because obviously he's an outstanding goalkeeper. And to be honest, when you said earlier, nobody's really given us a tanking. Well, we've let in 3 goals on quite a number of occasions in the last few weeks when Aaron's been in goal, and he's actually kept the score down on his own with some outstanding saves. So we could have shipped 5s and 6s if it hadn't have been for Aaron, if I'm honest.
Yes, no, I think it's a good move. I like Aaron Ramsdale. I think he was treated badly at Arsenal, but that I'm not an Arsenal fan, so I can't say that. Now, you're saying that Russell was a stickler for not changing his tactics, what have you. What sort of formation are we going to be seeing and style of play from Southampton? I guess it's the same as last season, is it?
Well, he's changed a little bit this season. He's played 5 at the back a couple of times, but I would imagine tomorrow we'd be looking at a flat back 4. Couple of holding midfielders, and then I think probably a 4-2-3-1 formation. It might be a 4-3-3. He likes the 4-3-3 as well. So I think it'll be one of those two.
We could be cancelling each other out then, because Steve Cooper likes his 4-2-3-1. But he dropped Winks, who was our player of the season for me last season. Amazing buy for 10 million, but he's dropped him this season. We won without him, so whether he will get back in or not will be interesting to see. But it'll almost certainly be Jamie Vardy up front, and like you, we've got a goalkeeper in Mads Hermansen, Danish keeper, and without him and the woodwork, we probably would have lost a lot more than we did. But like we said earlier, and you touched on it there, 5-4 on to win.
I know. I'll look at it. I mean, I can't believe we're favourite to win any game at the moment. The way that we've been playing, but obviously this is an incredibly crucial game, really. In terms of our season, probably more so than yours, because the longer you go without winning a football match, the worse your confidence gets, and it's really difficult to get out of that cycle. So, from Southampton's perspective, a win in this match is pretty key. If we were to get beat tomorrow, I think it would equal the worst ever start we've had to a Premier League season.
Really?
And that was and I can remember that because I was in the team for that year.
Fair enough, we'll move on.
However, after having 1 point after 8 matches, we still stayed up.
That wasn't the season Derby went down, was it? As the worst ever?
No, I don't think Derby was after that. Yeah, this was 90. I think this was 98, 99 season.
Like you say, it is all about staying up. It's not too soon to call this a 6-pointer, though, is it?
No, I don't think it is. I think I think we kind of looked at the Ipswich game at home a few weeks back and was kind of saying the same thing, because that there'll probably be they're the teams that are going to be fighting it out at the end of the season around that area, and if you can pick up 3 points in your home games against them, gives you a little bit of an advantage.
Those are the games that you really do need to win, like you say. I mean, no disrespect to Southampton. If we've won, all right, we won against Bournemouth. We were lucky, and thankfully, say to Mads in goal and the woodwork. But having won the game, we have, for me, away from home. If we come away with the point, that'll do neither of us any good.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's, we're getting to a position now where 3 points are pretty key. I don't think you can keep going weeks upon weeks with not picking up 3 points and expect to turn it on in the last couple of months of the season and all of a sudden win 5 out of 7 games to stay up. That very rarely happens. So you've got to get some points on the board early.
I think the interesting thing, certainly, and working in your favour, is that 7 games in, I don't think Steve Cooper knows his best starting 11 yet.
And same at my club.
Really? But for us, I mean, I'm surprised you say that, because obviously, you've got the manager that you had last year. We haven't, and he came in and we had a horrendous pre-season, but it was only pre-season. But it is worrying, and it's not, as I say, it's not really Steve Cooper's fault, because of he was having to come in and start from scratch. But yeah, after 7 games, he needs to be kind of, I think, now starting to settle on it's the midfield. He seems to swap that around. You never know who's going to be starting in what position. So if you asked me to pick the team, I couldn't do it now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same about my team. If you asked me to pick a team tomorrow, I'd have very little chance of getting it right. And you say about not knowing his best team because of what we were like last season, but you've got to remember we've got Sugawara's coming up right back. We've got a different goalkeeper. We've got Ugochukwu, who in midfield. We've got Cameron Archer, Ben Brereton Diaz, who we've bought, and then you've got Tyler Diblin, who's really come through into the team this season. So it's probably more than half the team isn't the team that were playing last season. Yes. So it's big changes.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot now, because I'm going to ask you what your prediction is.
I've got a funny feeling, looking at those odds, if I was a gambling man, which I sometimes am, I do have a float on the football occasionally. I actually think the most attractive odds out of all those was the 5-2 for the draw.
I've actually gone for a Leicester win because I have to, being a Leicester fan, but that's my heart. My head actually wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a 1-1, like you say.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking.
Yes, which unfortunately, like I say, as long as the teams around us don't start winning. I mean, Ipswich, they're always going to get a last-minute goal. That's what they did last season. They specialised in it, and it got annoying after a while, to be honest with you. And I was actually at, Jeff Stelling was doing a tour, and I actually went to watch him, and there's a couple of fans. Everybody in the auditorium was a football fan, and 2 people, when I got talking to them in front of me, a couple, and they were Ipswich fans. And I said, make the most of it. That's the only time you'll be ahead of Leicester this season. I have to say, I was a bit worried a couple of times. I really was. But
they were amazing.
I think. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I can probably see it being a draw. Now we always have a look at the player that's been at both. Did you actually play with Peter for just a season?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, when I made my debut, Peter was the goalkeeper. I think he went to Derby my second season at Saints. I think it was. I think we brought in John Burridge to take over from him.
And memories of him? I mean, is he one of the best you've played with?
I mean, obviously, you don't win 125 caps for your country without being exceptional at what you do. I was probably a little bit unfortunate that Pete was kind of coming towards the end when I played with him, so he wasn't, in his prime. But even so, I've never seen a goalkeeper so committed in training. He used to get upset when you let in a goal in shooting practice. Especially if somebody had the audacity to chip him. He didn't like that very much. But no, he was an incredible servant to the game of football and to England and to the clubs that he played for. He was superb.
I mean, 125 caps, like you say, for England, it would have been so many more had it not been for Ray Clemence.
Absolutely, yeah. They shared that for a few years, didn't they? Alternate caps, all that stuff.
They did.
Yeah, quite an achievement. It really was.
And of course, when he was at Leicester, he outed World Cup winner Gordon Banks.
Yeah, I mean that's some achievement to knock him out of the team, wasn't it? So pretty special.
And very brave by the board to go with him and let Gordon go. But
definitely. But I mean, I think that there was quite a few players I think that had a connection with Leicester and Southampton down the years.
Russell Osman. I mean,
that was the one that sprung to my mind. My first ever hat trick for Southampton was against Leicester.
I liked you before you came on.
I was only 18, and I scored a hat trick, and it was actually against Russell Osman was playing, and your goalkeeper was also somebody who became my teammate a few years after that, Ian Andrews.
Oh yes, Ian Andrews.
Archie came to Southampton a few years after that, so I used to rib him about that hat trick.
I'm sure you did, and I'm sure he loved you for it.
My mate Mickey Adams managed your team.
Yes, Mickey. I have a lot of time for Mickey Adams. He looked after us at a very difficult time with certain players.
Absolutely.
And La Manga, shall we just leave it at that? There's many a story about La Manga, and one or two of them involve Stan Collymore as well. But we won't go on about that. We've already touched on this about where you want, what we're looking for this season. We've said it's survival. Do you think you can have a good cup run as well? Or are you really not bothered by the cups as long as you stay up?
I actually, as a footballer, I looked forward to playing in the cups. I wanted to get to Wembley. I never played in a cup final. As a kid growing up, the FA Cup was massive for me. I was of that generation where it was like the thing to win, really. And so I always look forward to a decent cup run, and we've got Stoke at home in the next round of the EFL, so that's a good chance to get through to the quarterfinals. And so we've threatened a little bit the last few years. We lost in the final against Man United. We had an FA Cup semi-final against Chelsea. We've threatened and not quite done it. We've only still won one FA Cup and one Johnston Paints Trophy that I can remember. So
don't knock the Johnston Paint Trophy.
We're definitely due another one.
See what? That's one more trophy that Harry Kane hasn't got.
You leave Harry alone. He's a top bloke. I saw him on Monday.
Did you? No, don't get me wrong, lovely man, but first season at Bayern Munich and they don't win anything.
Yeah, no, that is quite ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite ironic.
He's one of those players that when he was at Tottenham, we hated him. He always scored against Leicester, and it was usually like yourself, 2 or 3 goals every time. But once he pulled the England shirt on, you absolutely loved him.
Actually, wasn't he on loan at you boys first?
Yes, there was a famous picture. Nigel Pearson was the manager at the touchline, and sat behind him on the bench, substitutes Jamie Vardy and Harry Kane.
Brilliant.
And we did actually try and buy him. And I'm not sure who the manager was at the time. The club were quite happy to sell him to us, apparently, but the manager wanted to keep hold of them.
Yeah, good decision.
Good decision indeed. Look, let's talk Matt. Let's talk Matt now. And talking about England, I mean, we always say with every manager that comes in, and obviously there's a new manager just been announced. First of all, your thoughts on German being in charge of the English national team?
To be honest, it's not what I would say was ideal. I mean, there's no rule against it, which is absolutely fine. I actually feel like the rules need to be changed. I actually think your national team should be managed by a person of that nationality, and I think that should be written in the rules, just the same as it is, that the players have to have a certain qualification criteria. I think the managers should be the same. And I don't see why it's different for a manager, because at the end of the day, you're all part of the same team. So why have you got a different criteria for one part of the team than you have for the other part of the team? It makes no sense to me. So first and foremost, my opinion is the rules need looking at and changing. And once they've done that, then that second point becomes moot, because it can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I always said that I agree with you. I think it should be an Englishman in charge, and I always said whatever happens, it should never be a Scotsman, should never be an Argentinian, and should never be a German. But does it though say? And they interviewed 10, of which some of those apparently were English managers. But does it say something about the standard of English managers, that there was one that was good enough or available?
I've just lost you for a second, but I think you were going to say, does it say something bad about England managers?
Yes, yeah, the fact that we haven't got anybody that's good enough to fill that role.
Well, I think it kind of it's almost a bit of an own goal, really, and an admission from the FA that, you know, all the money that they've poured into St George's Park and all the money that they pour into doing these FA coaching badges, basically what they're saying is our coaching badges are worthless. They're absolutely rubbish, because we can't get a manager who's capable of managing our national team, and we've got to go and look at a foreigner. You know, which is a bit of an indictment on the FA themselves, really.
I suppose when you look at there's two, I suppose, English possibilities. Graham Potter, who I don't like. I mean, we've offered him the job at Leicester. It's like asking a girl out 3 times and she's still saying no. And you're thinking, well, I've had enough now. And Eddie Howe. Neither of them are sort of, you know, up there with having won a lot of trophies. And when you look at what Tuchel's won, I suppose on that side of things, I can understand why.
Oh, if you're going on CV alone, then absolutely, you know, Thomas Tuchel is way ahead of probably any of the other candidates they spoke to, if they only spoke to English ones. So you know, you can understand them making that decision from a business perspective, and yeah, the rules allow it. So I guess, you know, why wouldn't they? But then again, as I said, a little bit of an own goal, and you know, makes a bit of a mockery of the fact why we bothered with St George's Park and why we bother with all the coaching badges for our England coaches.
It will be interesting to see what happens if he doesn't start very well. And you know what some of the English fans are like, and some of the chants that may come up. I can see there being a little bit of controversy there. I mean, look, you were a one-club man. You had a couple of, was it one season at Eastleigh and one game for Guernsey? But you were basically you're Southampton.
Yeah, that was non-league football. Eastleigh weren't a conference club like they are, or a National League club like they are now. They were about 3 divisions lower than that when I played for it.
But I mean, you were adored at Southampton. You must have had offers though from other clubs coming in for you.
I did indeed, yeah. I turned down a few offers. I nearly joined Spurs when I was 21. 5 years after that, Chelsea tried to buy me. Actually, early 90s, Liverpool were interested. So yeah, it was. There were a few that tried to prize me away, but for varying reasons at different times, it didn't happen. And you know, to this day, I have no regrets about staying at Southampton my whole career.
I mean, I don't know whether this is true or not, but obviously with Southampton, you're a Guernsey lad. It's a lot easier to get to Guernsey from Southampton than it is from Liverpool or anywhere up north.
Yeah, but that didn't really come into my thinking, if I'm honest. You know, at the end of the day, you know, jumping on a plane for half an hour or an hour doesn't really make a lot of difference. No. It didn't matter if I flew back from Southampton or from, you know, the East Midlands or wherever it was. Yeah. So yeah, that really wasn't part of my thinking.
Like you say, if you're happy, and you know, you'd never see that these days. I don't think. Very rare would you see somebody that would be that loyal.
No. I was a bit different. I didn't really play football for money. You know, and I wasn't really kind of overly fussed. Obviously, it would have been lovely to have won a trophy, and I tried my best. But I would have wanted to win a trophy at Southampton, and I didn't I didn't feel like if I then got transferred to the best club in the country and we won a trophy, it would kind of be a little bit hollow because I've kind of just rocked into a team that was going to win the league anyway.
Yes.
Although Harry Kane proved that's not always the case.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony says here, I wish Matt had joined Arsenal.
Well, there was no chance of that, mate, because I was a Spurs fan as a kid.
Yeah, that was off the board. Off the board. And it's funny, that's Matt Le Tissier not wanting to join Arsenal, Jamie Vardy not wanting to join Arsenal. Anthony, you're something up with your club, I'll tell you. Last time asks here, any foreign clubs are coming for you?
I had a couple of French clubs tried to buy me. I think Bordeaux was one, kind of in the mid to late 90s. But early on, around the same time that Spurs tried to buy me, Monaco were interested. I think Arsene Wenger was manager at the time.
Right.
Back in 1990. They were interested at that point as well. I think they saw my surname and thought I was one of them.
Yeah, well, Channel Islands, it's technically closer to France. I've got to ask about England, though. I mean, this is a big thing for me, I suppose, being a fan of not one of the big six. And all the managers come in and go, it doesn't matter who you're playing for. And I mean, Gareth Southgate made a big thing about that at the start. You come in, I don't care whether you're playing for, Pally or whatever, but it lasted about 6 months. And then he was picking Harry Maguire, who hadn't even played a game. Do you think that had you moved, you would have played more games for England?
I'm pretty certain I would have done. There was definitely a bias towards picking the players from the bigger clubs back in the 90s. I don't think there was really any question about that. So I think had I moved, I probably would have done, but that wasn't a reason for me to move. I'm very proud of the 8 caps that I did get. But like I say to people, actually winning 8 caps for Southampton in the 90s was almost the equivalent to playing for Man United and winning 40 or 50.
Yes.
They were worth so much more because I managed to do it whilst I was playing for one of the teams that was fighting relegation.
I mean, I remember before your time, but I remember sort of Frank Worthington at Leicester and Keith Weller at Leicester. I mean, they had a handful of caps between them, but had they been at Liverpool or somewhere like that, who knows what they might have done. Anthony again says, whose second team is Southampton? I should point that out. He likes any team in red, but he is a big. He says he's not, but it's Arsenal, Bristol City, and Southampton. Those are his 3 teams. What was Matt's favourite player he worked alongside with at Southampton?
So my favourite player to play alongside was a guy called Ronnie Eklund, and he was only at Southampton for one season in 94-95. Before he had a bit of a bad back injury and only played about 20 odd games for us. But he was my favourite player to play alongside. We were on the same wavelength on a football pitch, right from the first training session we had together. And he was a great lad, and I'm still in contact with him to this day.
Oh, yeah. I think you must get asked this all the time, and I think I know the answer. What was your favourite goal you scored and why?
So my favourite goal is different from my best goal. My best goal was at Blackburn, one goal of the season in 94-95. But my favourite goal was my last ever goal for Southampton, and it came in the last ever league match at the Dell. We were drawing 2-2 with Arsenal. I got sent on as a substitute, and in the 88th minute, I smashed a left-footed half volley on the turn into the top corner and won the match. And I became the last person ever to score a league goal at the Dell. So that's why it's my favourite.
That time got you on there. He guessed that one right. I mean, like you say, you've no regrets about anything you've done in your career. Could you have? I mean, I don't know. Do you have sort of like you were saying about France? Did you have any sort of French? Could you have played for France? I'm just going on the Le Tissier again here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, so to have qualified, I would have needed to have a grandparent who was French, and I didn't. But strangely enough, Graham Lasso, the other Channel Islander, the same age as me, He actually did have a grandfather that was French and he did qualify to play for France, but I didn't.
No, but he did play for England, didn't he?
He did.
On that, it would be remiss of me, if you don't mind, if I mention Soccer Saturday,
Sure.
which is I loved. I mean, I went back to the Rodney Marsh, George Best days when I started watching it, and George Best was it was you watch that to see if you could find one where he was sober, but no, that's being unfair. But I mean, I don't find anybody now that watches it, to be honest with you. I mean, you do get. It's like your favourite Doctor Who, I guess. It's whoever's sort of at the time. But the banter that you had, and Jeff Stelling on the night, he did speak highly of everybody on there. But it was a bit acrimonious, wasn't it, when you left?
I mean, they got rid of three of us on the same day. It seemed a little bit frivolous as to why they did that. I think there was obviously other issues going on. They didn't like stuff that I was saying on social media. They also, I think, were a company that were very heavily invested in the whole DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff, and having 5 middle-aged white blokes on a TV program for 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon wasn't a look that they were particularly comfortable with. So we were three of us were chopped on the same day.
It is box ticking. We see that all the time now, don't we?
Unfortunately, so yeah. World's gone mad.
You see somebody getting a job, you're thinking, or have they just ticked a couple of boxes? But I mean, you say that. I mean, look at Gary Lineker and what he gets away with on social media. I mean, both. There may be a job going there on Match of the Day. I mean,
Gary will get away. Gary will get away with anything because he's in the club.
Yeah, I went to school with Gary Lineker. I was in the same class as him. Yeah, no, I didn't like him then, to be honest with you. He was a bully. Let me just leave it at that, and because he's got bigger pockets than I have for the lawyers.
Hey, it wasn't you at school calling him black, was it?
No. I gotta say, I read that with total and utter disbelief.
I bet you did.
Nobody that I know of ever said that. What did the Queen say? Our recollections differ on that particular point. He was, like I say, and I was bullied by him. Let me just put it that way. And I don't think I ever heard anybody say anything about the colour of his skin. That was a weird one to come out with. But look, he comes out with a lot of weird stuff, doesn't he?
He certainly does. But he's on the right side of things, so he'll get away with it.
He seems to, doesn't he? He seems to. But like I said, there could be a job going on Match of the Day there next season. Who knows?
Not for me.
Carragher too has had a dodgy moment. Sky went woke and they're about to go broke. Look, I've got to ask you, Chris Kamara. I mean, what a guy, and he's been through hell himself. Was he as daft and as mad and as fun as he came across on screen?
Honestly, the Chris Kamara that you saw on the television was the same Chris Kamara that you saw off the television, I can assure you.
Yes. Yeah.
Mad as a box of frogs.
Were you on the panel that time with the famous sending off?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was in the studio when he missed the sending off. Yeah, brilliant.
But they reckon that probably actually, because he was worried about losing his job, wasn't he? But it actually got so much publicity that it probably turned it round,
Yeah, he probably went in for a pay rise.
Yeah, probably. Oh, Matt, look, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate when people give up the time to come on these shows. So thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the future. I wish Southampton well. I'd like to see them.
I lost you one last time.
Sorry?
I lost you one last time there. Sorry.
That's all right. I wish you all the best for the future. I wish Southampton well. I hope they stay up as well. There's other teams I'd love to see go down. Nottingham Forest. I will not wish you. I will not wish you well on Saturday.
Absolutely. I wouldn't expect it.
Right, thank you so very, very much. All the best, and we'll hopefully speak soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. There we go. What a lovely, lovely man. No, I've never liked him for the reasons that I've just pointed out. I've got to be careful because, like I say, he's got bigger pockets for his lawyers than I have. Now, thanks to Matt, like I say, these guys, they come on, they don't get paid for this. They come on and they give the time up. I know I've not asked all the questions. Bath Times raised a couple there. I'm trying to keep it. I mean, a few things I could have asked and what have you. Hi, Jack. How you doing? Popping in just as we go in there. Typical. Always late to the party, Jack. Lovely to see you, mate. Hope you're doing well. But great thanks to Matt. We're going to be back tomorrow at 7:00 for the Prediction League. I have to say, I am the strongest player in the Prediction League. I'm bottom. I'm holding everybody else up. I have been away. If you didn't know, I have been away in Australia, and I was having to predict matches 5 weeks in advance with no idea about form. And I'm going to be using that excuse all season. And then we're back at 2:15 for the watch along. Back with a watch along on Saturday. Looking forward to that. I can't believe somebody lent me or advised me how to get hold of him, and it was. I can't believe that he said yes to coming on. But I mean, obviously we got Southampton, so that was what it was. But Brad, you're not having a bad season at all. But no, thanks to Matt, thanks to everybody that's been in the chat. Really, really, really do appreciate it. Look, guys, I'm not one that I've ever sort of asked for money, but it's $1.99 a month to become a member. I've just paid £300 out for StreamYard to renew it. It's gone up £100 this year. I've paid $137 for Eve Mux as a backup. I pay for somewhere else to have all the artwork and be able to do all that. It does cost a lot of money to run this channel. I'm retired now. $1.99, it's not a lot. You wouldn't even get half a pint for $1.99. Check out on YouTube, underneath this video, there's a link. You can become a member. There's a couple of things you get, but it's only $1.99. What it does, it just helps us financially. Don't get great money off it, probably 20 quid a month from everybody that's in it. But if you are able to afford $1.99, and I know it's hard for everybody else out there as well, but it really, really would help the channel. So I really do appreciate if you are able to do that. So thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow, like I say, at 7:00 for the prediction show. Take care. Thanks to Matt. Thanks to you lot. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.